Hey, it's Coach Action Jackson, and I'm here with another episode of Client Success Stories. I've got Mike Barney on because Mike Barney has quite possibly the best, most incredible Christmas tree back I've seen on anybody I've ever worked with. He's incredible. Of course, he knocked it out of the park when it came to the stats in the program. He only lost 1 pound in the 16 weeks, but he lost 4% body fat. He gained on 5 pounds of muscle. And here is a crazy number for you. He lifted 2,232,496 pounds in only 16 weeks. Mike Barney, the legend, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Coach. Well, that's quite the introduction.
Why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, whatever you want to share, outside of the fact that you're just somebody who lifts 2 million pounds in 16 weeks.
Well, yep, sure. Thanks, Coach. Like you said, my name is Mike, and I am 46 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, married, got 4 kids, and I own my own business. We do some home remodeling, and kind of went on a fitness journey a few years ago, and then I found you and jumped into the program, and can't wait to talk more about it.
Yeah, so you did start a journey a couple years ago. If you look at like your first before photos, the transformation is incredible. I'm sure we'll show those. So that is a mind-blowing transformation, my friend. And then you came to us, roughly 16 weeks ago. You were in a better spot. You're, again, another one of these classic good to great stories where you came in and most people probably would have said, hey, Mike, what are you doing here? Like, you look great. Why are you trying to get any fitter? And you went and took it obviously to a whole new level. So why don't you talk to me about that? Where were you at 16 weeks ago? Why did you want to take things to the next level and improve and go from good to obviously where you're at great? Why did you want to do that? Most people aren't that ambitious. Why was it important for you?
Like you said, I had already started a journey. So I was in a better spot than I had been in, let's say, 2 years before that. I got my tonal about a year and 2 months maybe before I started the program, a year and 3 months. It was December of the year and a half before. So I had been going through some programs, wasn't really tracking macros. I didn't really change my eating habits, but I was lifting weight. And then after about 8 or 9 months of going really hard, I started to feel sore everywhere. I was getting burnt out. I had no direction. I did Go Big or Go Home 1 and 2. I did, all the big hypertrophy muscle building programs. And then I got tendonitis in my elbow, and I just started to feel run down. So I wound up taking like 2 or 3 months off of tonal, didn't lift. And I lost a lot of my gains. And those 2 or 3 months, I was like, holy cow, it's unbelievable how quickly that went away. And so I jumped back into it. I was feeling better. My elbow felt better. I jumped back into it. And about 3 or 4 months in, I said, all right, I don't want to go down the same path I did the first time. I want to try something different here. So I lowered my weights. I focused more on form. And then eventually I said, okay, I need to get in touch with a coach who can help me with an entire program. So I wanted someone who was going to help me with nutrition and with working out. So I wound up starting with somebody, and it really wasn't exactly what I was looking for. It wasn't a cohesive program. It was more nutritional based. So I did that for about 4 weeks before I wound up starting your program. And I got actually really good results. I think I lost probably 10 pounds in that month that I started really tracking my macros. I had a pretty specific nutrition plan, but there really wasn't too much guidance on the lifting side, on the working out side. It was just kind of, keep doing what you're doing, but eat this way. And so after about a month of doing it, I realized not exactly what I'm looking for. And then that's when we got in touch. We had a few phone calls, and the rest is history.
Fantastic. So obviously, a lot to unpack there. You had your own journey. You made some progress, got to a point where hard work was no longer just the thing that could move the needle for you. Hard work is great. It is an absolute prerequisite to having great success. You have to be able to push hard. You have to be able to get outside your comfort zone and put in the work. That is no doubt. But you also have to combine that with strategy. And if you don't combine that with strategy, you're not going to get leverage. And of course, you're not going to do things safely. That's going to set you up for long-term success. So you burnt out a little bit, took a little bit of a break, hiatus, started working with somebody else, realized that was kind of a one-dimensional program, so decided to join ours, which is fantastic. And this is something I always tell people. A lot of times people want to find, right, the smallest solution, or like just the one little missing piece and see if they can squeeze that in. But oftentimes it's not just one piece, it's actually one piece and also maneuvering all of the puzzle pieces together to make sure that you're getting the best leverage and that things are integrated and working together. Even something as small as like mindset. People don't think about mindset, but your mindset massively impacts the limitations you put on yourself, massively impacts the story you tell for yourself, and it also impacts the progress you make and the gains that you get. Because if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to get the results that you want. And that's been proven time and time again. So I love that you were looking for something that was a little bit more comprehensive and going to get all those puzzle pieces together. So when you joined our program, what were some of the initial stumbling blocks, if any? Some of the obstacles you faced, some of the difficulties and challenges? Because for a lot of people, it can be quite difficult starting a new journey like this. And I know you had some history, but what was that like in the early on phases, and how did you manage that?
Early on in phase one, I think my challenge was kind of similar to a lot of folks. With phase one being low carb, and I wasn't low carb prior. I was pretty evenly balanced with my macros. With my job and pretty much working on my feet all day long, I think I was about, we had some conversations around this early on, my energy levels. And you gave me initially two nutrition plans that I could choose from. One was a low carb, the typical plan, and one was a higher carb, because you knew my energy output being on my feet all day, you wanted to give me that option. But of course, being the overachiever that I am and wanting to get the best results, I said, there's no way I'm not going with what's going to get me the best overall, quickest results. So I went with the low carb plan, and my energy levels at about week 2, I noticed during the day, I was just moving slow. I mean, I was dragging, walking in and out of houses. I was just like, I don't know if I can get the next foot in front of the other one. I mean, it was bad. But it was some simple tweaks. We spoke, and that's one of the great things I loved about the program is the availability of, being able to reach you pretty much any way, whether it's texts through the app. You're very accessible. So we spoke, and I think you threw out a few things. The first one was, what's your hydration like? Let's make sure you're hydrated, get some electrolytes in you. I think you recommended the LMNT and a couple things I added to some of my drinks to get some of those electrolytes back in there, some salt, and increase that a little bit. And then I think at one point I realized that I hadn't upped my carbs at a point in the nutrition plan that I was supposed to. And I think that's where, you told me details matter. So I remembered that, and I remember to make sure every week I wasn't just assuming where I was with the nutrition plan that, all right, let me check, because sometimes things change every 2 weeks. It's not just once every 4 weeks. So once I did that, the energy levels actually they weren't fantastic, but they were much better, to the point where I wasn't like, okay, I'm going to have to do something differently here. So I would say that was probably early on one of the biggest challenges. I was super motivated. So probably like a lot of people who start something, tracking the macros and food and meal prepping and making good eating decisions came pretty easy for me because I was motivated. You're right. I wanted to make the most out of the program. So I wouldn't say those were any challenges up front. It was mainly just that energy level with the low carb at the very beginning.
Yeah. So we do a couple of things, right? So we can provide several different options. Carbs aren't necessarily bad. And that's something I do want to get out there and emphasize to anybody who's listening, watching this, is that carbs are not the enemy. Carbs are not bad. There's physical reasons why we limit and reduce the carbohydrates in the beginning of the program, but there's also some psychological reasons why we do that, because you have to remember there's psychology and then there's the mechanics of what we're doing. We have to think about the psychology as well as the mechanics, because the psychology is going to keep you going and keep you staying consistent. So part of the reason why, in terms of psychology, why we reduce carbs in the beginning of the program is simply to make sure that we're getting the impact that we want. We're reducing weight, inflammation, we're tightening up, we're leaning down, we're doing some of those things so people can start seeing and feeling results a little bit faster. And that way they can stack wins and build momentum, because momentum is ultimately what's going to take them through to the finish line. And for a lot of people, they'll start a program and they'll go, Jackson, when am I going to see the results? Jackson, when is the scale going to move? Jackson, when am I going to start noticing my clothes fitting better? And they're 2, 3, 4 weeks in and they're not seeing success. And that's when they can fall off very easily. And I used to see that all the time. So that's why I started reducing carbohydrates early on in the program, psychologically to help people build some wins, but also physically, because more often than not, people are eating more carbohydrates than they typically need, want to do a little bit of a detox, reduce insulin, number of factors there. But for you, because again, the active job, we do provide something that's a little bit more specialized and say, hey, this might be a little bit of a slower path initially, although I think it'll still get you to the same outcome. But of course, overachiever, you wanted to do everything. So you ended up obviously course correcting. We made some adjustments, energy levels improve. What other obstacles, kind of, if any, did you face when you went through the program?
I would say one of the, having a family, I mentioned I've got a wife and 4 kids. One of the challenges was not isolating myself so much from them when it came to eating, because I was eating so differently than they were. And you gave me some tips on that too. And I remember those being, well, hey, if your first 2 meals of the day, let's say, you do your thing, whether it's at home, away from home, you follow your macro plan, you're on target, there's no problem with eating what the rest of the family eats at the end of the day. If that's the tradition, you get together and eat a meal. Just control your portions. Don't go back for seconds and thirds, which, was always my, let's say we make meatloaf, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and some broccoli. I'm going back for more meatloaf, mashed potatoes, everything. So just limit it to 1 serving, put on your plate what you're going to eat, and just get that mindset that this is all I'm having for dinner tonight. But at least then I can join the rest of the family, right? So I'm not separating myself so much, because it was like, here's Mike's food, here's everyone else's food. And then my wife kind of had to take over cooking for everybody else when we used to share that, because I was busy making my own thing. So trying to find a balance there was definitely another one of the challenges early on. And that's not a challenge of the program. That was for me personally, because not everyone came along with me. They weren't all going to eat shrimp and lean ground turkey every night with nothing on it, and 50 grams of brown rice.
So for somebody out there who's saying, hey, that's going to be something that I'm going to have to deal with as well, how did you overcome that challenge? Do you just track for your first couple of meals and then just go portion control for your third? Like, how do you manage that today?
I still tracked it because I wanted to see. It's a little easier now, because obviously the further along you get in the program, and then when you're done, obviously, whether you continue on with coaching or do it on your own, I still want to know, because my goal is to still build muscle and keep a level of fitness. I want to know where I'm at with my protein, make sure I'm not, overdoing it with calories overall. So yes, I do still track. Are there some meals throughout the day that maybe I won't? Sure, absolutely. I'm not quite as strict. My goal is to do something that's sustainable, that I can continue doing forever. And I know you track every single thing you put in your body, and you've been doing that for probably 10 years. I don't know if I've got that type of personality to be able to, the fortitude to do that every single day. I try. But there are some meals I'm like, you know what? I have about 600 calories left for the day to kind of put me where I want to be. I have an idea that this plate's somewhere in the 600 to 800 calorie range. As long as I stick to that, I'm good. I'm going to I'm going to go crazy today and not put in how many carbs and grams of fat that I had. And that it was a little freeing early on, but then, as I start to see a little bit of my progress go away, the pants, one day I put my pants on that I had gotten down to like a size 32 work pant that I wear. And normally I was at 36 a while ago. Then I went down to 34 before the program, and I was at 32. One day I put them on. I was like, these are getting a little tight again. It's time to go back to tracking those macros a little bit closer, because it's so easy to not realize that I'm 500 calories over today. And you do that a few times in a month, and all of a sudden you put on 1 or 2 pounds. You're like, okay. And, when you get down to that 10 to 12% body fat, 1 to 2 pounds of body fat, you notice.
That's great. And that's really what we want to do. And Mike, I know you probably think of me up here, but I don't track everything that I put in my body at all times every day either. Just like I preach, the program is largely a reflection of my own life in many ways, right? So progress, not perfection, is something I'm preaching to you and all my clients and everybody out there listening, just as much as I'm always preaching to myself. Because as a reformed perfectionist, I've got to do the exact same thing. I can't always be perfect as much as I want to be. And if you want to make this something that's sustainable for the long term, if you want to get results, have success, and not lose it, not give up all that ground you gained, and maintain it to some degree, you have to learn sustainable strategies, because you're going to be eating for the rest of your life. So you have to come up with sustainable strategies. You're going to be training ideally for the rest of your life, or as long as you possibly can. So we need strategies that are going to work for the long term, not just to get you a result in the next couple of weeks so you could look great on a beach, but something that can help you look great on the beach forever, ideally. So I love that you were able to make those small, subtle adjustments. And this is going to be different for everybody. This is, again, where customizations come in, where also everybody's plan is going to be slightly different. I like desserts and pizza. John Wickman, one of the other guys in the program, likes wine. Obviously, you like having dinner with your family. So everybody's going to have their thing. And that's why one size fits all doesn't work. That's also why perfection doesn't work. So I love you were able to manage that and find a sustainable strategy that's going to work for you for the long term. But also realizing that if you don't pay attention to your portions, if you don't track to some degree, whether you're tracking your portions or tracking your macros or tracking 2 out of 3 meals for the day and just leaving room for that last meal, you have to track some way, somehow, because there's no perfect solution. There's only trade-offs. And if you're not tracking to some degree, you're guessing. And if you're guessing, that's when the weight and the body fat's going to go back up. So I love that you're able to find that balance, which is really important. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but everyone wants balance. But the thing is that they're coming into the program because they're typically off balance in one way, typically eating too many calories and maybe not pushing themselves or working hard enough, or maybe just not integrating things properly. So we kind of have to go to a bit of another extreme in the beginning of the program for the first month in order to find that balance as we move through phases 2, 3, and 4. So yes, it's a little bit extreme in the beginning in order to produce a result, get the momentum, do all those things. And then we're able to find that balance as we move towards graduation and beyond. So now that you've gotten through graduation and beyond, tell me, what have been some of the highlights? We talked about some obstacles. What are some of the highlights mentally, emotionally, physically? I know in your last Facebook post you made in the group, of course, you went through all the stats. The 2 million pounds lifted, by the way, is just horrendously insane. I mean, that's just so over the top. I don't know if anybody has gotten even close to that number, but you mentioned life mindset completely changed. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, the workouts in the program are tough. And I think everyone in the program is kind of like-minded. And people who have tonal, the tonal kind of, one of the great things about it is it pushes you to do more, because you see the comparison. As soon as you're done with the program, the lift, you see what you did versus the last time. And none of us want to go back. We all want to get better. Of course, I learned that pushing myself too much, I wind up with tendonitis and all that. So I was definitely motivated to continue to improve in the workouts. But again, they were very tough. I think once some of the competition really got involved, there was a few guys in the group that we were all sort of in the same part of the program at the same time. And so we would post our results and then someone else would post results. And then I think one time I made some modification to one of the off tonal moves. I flipped the Bosu ball upside down and I put, instead of just having my feet on the ground, I put my feet up on the stability ball, and all of a sudden, I think it was Jeff was like, "Oh, I'm going to do it too," and then these video challenges started. So that was kind of a fun part of the program that I didn't expect, to have that camaraderie of the Facebook community, not only to help you when you needed a little bit of help, maybe you didn't do so well in a workout, just to give you that little extra push, but the motivation to be competitive and keep up with those guys or stay ahead of them, depending on what it was you were talking about. But my mindset definitely changed from let me see if I can do this to, well, I know I can do this, and I know because I just did it. But coach taught me that if going into it, I just tell myself, look, I've got the tools to be able to do it. If I just tell myself I can do it, I'm going to be able to do it. So yeah, I was definitely surprised by, I knew I was going to work hard. I knew I was going to probably be eating well, or at least, have a plan to eat well. I wasn't expecting the Facebook group to help as much as it did, and, to make the friends that I did online, and the mindset stuff too. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from me was, just changing, not only on working out and eating, but just mental well-being. There was a lot of that I wasn't expecting at all.
Yeah, the community and the camaraderie is so important whenever you're going through one of these journeys. I've done it with obviously people from business coaching. When I first started my first gym, Diacati, all the different trainers that I work with, I didn't even know being a personal trainer and making six figures and actually helping people get fit and change their lives and improve their lives without just selling them supplements. I didn't even know that existed until I joined that group. And I met a bunch of people that were doing it, and it blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a profession. I can do this and not just make $10 an hour. Wow, this is incredible. And all of a sudden, it opened my mind and my life up to all these possibilities and all these people that then were helping me and giving me advice and education, knowledge and insights and breakthroughs that would have never happened had I not joined that group. So for me, that was a life-changing group. It really did change my life. I wouldn't be talking to you. I never would have gotten involved in tonal. I wouldn't have helped a single soul in terms of fitness if it hadn't been for that group. That's how powerful that group is. So I believe very strongly in my soul in the power of groups. And I'm so glad that you were able to experience the power of groups as well. And if you're out there saying, well, I'm not that competitive, or I don't want to get competitive with other people in the group, there's plenty of people who aren't competitive in the group. If you want to be competitive and have that kind of fun camaraderie, it's there, but it's there in a playful way. People aren't getting aggressive with each other or anything. It's not a mean competitive nature by any means. And if you don't want that, of course, you don't have to have that. I really like to think of the competition as more of an inspiring thing that helps people from a positive sense than a sort of negative thing. So that's fantastic. And then the other thing you mentioned is obviously the mindset. And I love that shift in the mindset. But can you tell me or give me any insight into how did you make that shift? Because if I'm listening at home and I'm saying, okay, well, great, Mike, how did you make the shift and go from, okay, I don't know if I could do this to I absolutely can? Is it just the workouts? Is it just like getting more fit? Like what helped you make the shift to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely after having made it through the first couple of weeks, that helps with some of the confidence. But I just kept telling myself that, I'm going to do this. At the very beginning, my goal was to get abs, right? So I was focused. I wanted to get abs for the first time in my life. I've never had visible abs. So that was my goal early on. And it wound up shifting, when I realized that it probably wasn't going to happen for me, just probably because of, the way my body's composed, genetics, whatever it was. I need to develop my abs before they're really going to pop out. But I just told myself, the only way you're going to be able to do this is if you believe you can do it. And I just told myself, you're going to be able to do it. You've got the coach there as your backup. If you run into any obstacles, he's coached hundreds of people through it before. He's done probably 10 times, worse, harder programs than we're going through now. So, he's not coaching us through something that he hasn't done himself. Again, there's the Facebook group to reach out to. But yeah, it really was, and obviously, there's a financial investment. So I was not interested in throwing that away, and I just knew, hey, I'm going to make this work. No matter what the obstacles are, it's going to happen for me. And I just kept getting motivated by, taking progress photos, doing measurements, and just seeing it happening. And every time I would see an improvement, it was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to go back. It's kind of like when, getting that pump at the gym. It's you start to kind of crave that. And it's like, Wednesday's my off day. It's like, but I'd really love to go down there and maybe just do a few sets of biceps and get a nice little pump going and feel good about it. Yeah, it's just telling myself there is no other option. I'm going to complete this program. I'm going to get the results that I want.
Wow. I love that, Mike. Incredible. Because I think there's two, really important things that you talked about. You talked about changing your self story there. So you had one narrative that was in your head, and through taking action, through putting yourself in difficult situations, getting outside your comfort zone, and sort of battling and just improving little by little, incrementally over time, you began to shift and change your self story from one of like, hey, I don't know if I can do this, to one of I absolutely can. And I have all this evidence that shows that I can, because when I don't feel like doing that 8th, 9th, and 10th rep, I do it anyway. When I don't feel like climbing out of bed in the morning because I'm low energy because the first week is low carb, I do it anyway. And you begin to shift your self story and build evidence that you are exactly who you say you are. And all of a sudden now, one day it feels like it flips like a switch and you're like, oh, this is what it's like. And that's fantastic. And then the other thing that you did, obviously you were locked dead set on getting a specific goal. And you mentioned, obviously, maybe feeling like you came up a little short on the goal. Now, what I would say is that you might not have gotten the full visual crazy like six pack like some people do in the program. And part of that's certainly a genetic component. You were lean enough to have abs. You do have abs. You just don't have the visual lines like some people have. And that's certainly a genetic component. But the flip side is that you have the most incredible back of anybody I've ever seen. And I even said to you, like, if you could walk down a beach backwards, holy cow, people would be just like jumping out of buildings to look at your back, because your back is so amazing, more amazing than mine, just about anybody's I've ever seen. Like, you definitely have a better back than I do, 100%. So part of that's obviously going to be genetic. But what you did was you didn't necessarily like give up on your goal. You still pursued, you still pushed, you still did all of the things. And you took your genetics and your limitations and everything to the absolute peak max that you possibly could. And what you said is that, hey, given from a lifestyle perspective, I don't know if it's worth it to push it any further from here. And that's totally okay. I can tell you from a lifestyle perspective, I have business coaches and mentors and people I've worked with who make $1 million a month in their business. But I know what it took for them to get there. And it's hard work. There's sacrifices. There's things they have to do. They have to manage big companies with lots of employees and other things. And for me, I would like to make $1 million a month, but I don't know if I'm willing to do that because I don't think I want to manage that big of a business. I like being still in the details a bit. I still like working with clients. And if I have that type of business, unlikely I'm going to be able to do those things. So that's a trade-off. Everything in life is trade-offs. And you simply made a trade-off and said, hey, I'm happy with having the best back in town. I have great abs, maybe not the best abs, but great abs still. I'm going to have the best back and I'm going to max this out and just take it as far as I can. But I also want to be respectful of and make sure that I'm balancing this with my lifestyle as well. And I think that's a really important thing that you did. Not easy, but I'm really proud of you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I did the back picture and then I said, let me just pull up, what I look like today versus what I looked like when I first started my first day. And I was shocked. Obviously, you don't see your back every day. Most of us don't, stand in front of the mirror and turn. Usually it's, we do the double bicep pose but we don't turn around and look at our backs. And so when I actually did that and compared one to the other, I was shocked too. I didn't expect to see those types of results. And yeah. So I'll take that. I'll take the lack of abs for the compliments on the back. I appreciate that.
Yeah, unbelievable. So anything else you kind of want to share, things you want to mention, anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be relevant, necessary for anybody listening out there today?
I would just say for anyone who's considering the program, make sure you are ready to commit. I think it's easy to say yes and then get into the program. And maybe if you haven't made that mindset change, and even before you started teaching me about mindset, I really had to be ready to go. We had our conversations on the phone, and at the end of the second conversation, it wasn't really pressure, but it was, what do you think? Are you ready to go? And I don't think when we went into that conversation, I was ready to give a yes or no answer yet. But I said I paused for a second and I said, you know what? If I have to sit here and wait and wonder after talking to coach and hearing about the program, then I'm not ready to do it yet. So it was either I'm out and I'm going to have to reevaluate if I want to do this, or I'm going to do it. And so at that moment in time, I just said, yes, this is the program I'm looking for. And I jumped into it. So, I would say for someone who's questioning whether or not they want to do it, I would recommend everyone do it, but be ready to go. You want to be ready to commit because it is a commitment. It's not, a willy-nilly program. I don't want to scare anybody away from it, of course, but if you are ready to make a lifestyle change, not only to your body, but to your mind, and, get to know an incredible coach and become a part of, an amazing community, then absolutely 100% I'd recommend this to anybody.
Yeah, our goal is obviously to change people's lives. That's not a small thing. So when you say you got to be ready to go, of course, different people start at different levels. You came in at a much more advanced level. You're getting the most difficult, challenging workouts. We're, punching you in the gut and you're coming back for more. Other people, starting at quite different levels. We've helped a couple of people lose 100 pounds plus. So those people are going to start at different levels, of course, but whichever level you're starting at, for you, it's going to obviously push you outside your comfort zone and be difficult. So absolutely, you're correct. The funny thing is that you have to be ready to commit, as you said, but making a decision is the most important thing, because most people will spend years, if not an entire lifetime, in indecision, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, not stepping forward and just jumping all in and having faith and saying, I can do this, either because of fear of failure or fear of success or both. And that's the travesty in life. I did my first no pack to six pack transformation interview ever was with this guy named Michael. And Michael, I asked him, I said, why did you want to do this? And that's one last question I'm going to have for you. And when I said, why did you want to do this? He said, I've wanted to do this my entire life. And he was in his late 20s, early 30s at the time. And he said, I just have always been afraid of trying and failing. He said, I know if I try and I fail, then I just don't think I could handle that failure, because it'd be like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or hard work, or there'd be like almost a defect about me if I did that. He said, so I wanted to join and do it with you to make sure that I was successful, to try to maximize my odds. He's like, I was always afraid. And for a lot of people, they're afraid because they tell themselves a story that they can't do it, or they can't get to the result, or genetically it's not possible, or they're too old, or they're too young, or they're too short, or they're too tall, or they're too whatever it is. And the reality is that we just limit ourselves significantly. And if we meet somebody who sees something in us and sees that potential and can yank it out of us, number one, it's going to be a life-changing thing. But number two, you got to be ready for it. And number three, it could be the greatest experience of your life. And I hope this was a good experience. It sounds like it was. I'll cover the numbers one last time, and then we'll talk about and answer the final question, which is the why question. You lost 1 total pound. So it was a completely traditional recomp, 1 total pound, but 4% body fat, added 5 pounds of muscle, lifted 2.2 million pounds across 16 weeks. Strength score went up 49 points up to 1530. You lost 1.5 inches off your waist. You gained 2 inches on your shoulders, gained another 2 inches on your legs. So, man, you added some serious muscle, Mike. I mean, you look incredible. The photos look incredible. I can't thank you enough, and I want to acknowledge you for all the hard work. I can't say thank you enough for the hard work, for trusting me, for investing in yourself, for doing this, for being such an inspiration in the community, so involved. All the posts, the photos, the Christmas tree back, going along with all my jokes and having fun. You've been incredible. I can't thank you enough. I really do appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to work with you. So thank you for that. Last question. Why did you want to do it? You said many times, I was so motivated. What was the driver for you? Because a lot of people struggle with that motivation aspect and saying, I'm not motivated, or I don't feel like it, or I don't have the driver. I don't know why I want to do this. What was it for you that got you to push so hard and got you to this point here?
I think honestly, what pushed me over the edge was really you and your knowledge in the industry, the results that you have personally gotten. I heard a bunch of your stories. You were the coach on tonal that I think I connected the most with. Traditional bodybuilding programs, and just your Arnold stories. Little quotes here and there. But then doing a little bit of research on you and finding out, hey, I think some of this you told in some of the programs, but other stuff I may have found online. You were a baseball player, athlete when you were younger. I was the same, wanted to be a baseball player, realized, hey, it's probably not in the cards for me. I have the drive to do the work, but you do have to have some God-given talent to make it to the top levels. And so you made the decision to, get into fitness and bodybuilding and to do something you could control through hard work versus something that was God-given. So just hearing your story and knowing that, okay, if he's done it, he's going to put what he knows into this program, and I can trust him that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's combining my nutrition and my fitness, mindset changes, all that stuff combined. That's really what made me say, okay, yeah, this is going to be worth it. I have a good feeling about this. And I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't know anyone who did the program before. I just decided to do it. So I kind of took a leap of faith, but it was not that much of a leap because, again, of what I just said, knowing, what I knew about you. But, not to answer this too long-winded, but, that's really what it was. I trusted you.
I really do appreciate it. And like you, I initially did want to be a baseball player, but what's interesting about that, and I don't think I've ever shared this before, is that I didn't want to be a baseball player because I necessarily wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be a baseball player because my dad wanted me to be a baseball player. And I really just wanted to make my dad proud. And that's why I pushed it in baseball, and I kind of created my identity around that. And then when I lost that, when I got cut from the team, and eventually when I graduated from college and I was no longer playing, I didn't know who I was. But what's interesting is that I found myself through working out. I found my confidence. I found strength. I found inner strength that I never had. I found significance through other people saying, wow, you seem like you're kind of good at this. How are you doing this? Or what are you doing for arms or chest? I saw that workout that you were doing earlier. What was that? And that really helped boost my confidence. And it helped me kind of figure out who I was. And it helped me just really strengthen myself and become the person I am today. And what's also interesting is I never wanted to be a personal trainer either. I wanted to be the next Greg Plitt. I just wanted to be a fitness model that was like on the cover of magazines. And you talked about self-story earlier, and you talked about, not quite getting to the six-pack that you wanted, even though, of course, you look fantastic. I never got on the cover of a magazine. Not a lot of people know this either. I've been in Men's Health dozens of times, Muscle and Fitness dozens of times. I've been in all the magazines many, many times. Never got the cover. Never got it. So I'm technically a failed fitness model that wanted to be the next Greg Plitt, who then was like, I guess I'll get into personal training. I don't know what else to do. And this, so I'm basically a failure.
I'd make the argument you're a pretty darn successful failure.
But failing initially at baseball and then failing at fitness modeling was the best damn thing that ever happened to me. Rock tells the story about how he failed to get in the NFL. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Failing at those two things is the absolute best thing that ever happened to me, because it got me to a point where I get to work with amazing people like you, and I get to hear your stories and see your photos and see how you guys light up and get excited. And it just drives me to get up every freaking day and to work my ass off to help people like you, because I love this moment right now that we're having. It means everything to me, Mike. So thank you for making my life so damn fulfilling and making me so happy. Because of you, I get to live my dreams. So thank you.
That's awesome. I appreciate it, Coach.
I appreciate you, Mike.